Okay, let's join hands. Just let our breath relax into a feeling of oneness. We'll recite the invocation. Toward the One, the perfection of love, harmony and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Let's begin by doing the 20 purification breaths standing up, which is a good way to do them, not seated, but standing. And just to go through it, as we're inhaling, we're thinking Ya Shafi, and as we're exhaling, we're thinking Ya Kafi. And the use of the wazifas on the breath is a tremendous force of purification and awakening and rising in our inner contemplation of the One that we're using. So to understand that we're taking in through the sacred name the body of God into our body, and this is a vibration that has to do with healing and purification. And oh healer, oh remedy, all sufficient remedy. You know, so to make, if we just connect with that in our knowingness and in our awareness that this is part of what we're breathing, it really helps. And the other thing is to connect with the all-pervading life in space. So we're just going to breathe in 5 times through the nose and out through the nose, breathing in slowly Ya Shafi, and breathing out slowly Ya Kafi. And then we're going to breathe in 5 times through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you're breathing out through the mouth, a refined stream, not a refined stream out through the mouth. Same inhalation, same exhalation. Shafi on the inhalation, Ya Kafi on the exhalation. In through the nose, out through the mouth 5 times. It just proceeds in that order. In and then in through the mouth and out through the nose, and then finally in through the mouth and out through the mouth. And at the end, we say the healing prayer, and just take a few breaths to connect with the all-pervading life in space. The healing in the elements. So let's begin. you finish, just breathe in and out through both nostrils. We'll wait just a bit longer. Let's say the prayer. Beloved Lord, Almighty God, through the rays of the sun, through the waves of the air, through thy all-pervading life in space, purify and revivify us, and we pray, heal our bodies, hearts, and souls. The heart is seen as the globe over the soul. The soul is this immortal light, which is the ray of the light of your being, which is not separate from source. But we experience it as separate from source. But it's the heart now has got all these layers over it, all these emotions, all these thoughts, all these this analysis and judgment, all this self-blame, all these covers are over it, but the heart is still holding them together with this idea of I am this, you know. But somewhere at the depth of that feeling is the light of the soul. And so by healing the heart, we heal the soul. And we take care of the mind, because the heart is the aspect of mind that we're using. But again, you know, we could certainly add mind to that, and it certainly needs purification. The only problem is when you do things as a group. Otherwise, say your prayers in the way that really touches your heart. Make them inclusive. Change the gender. You know, add the names of the female embodiments. You know, we connect with the illuminated souls. They're a point of light for us. I use Murshid Sam because he was an illuminated soul that I was very fortunate to be with, and you know, but he's a point of connection into God, into the illuminated souls, into my own sense of self. I don't feel separate from him. You know, so by not feeling separate from him, I can easily draw on that oneness of heart, and because he's an illuminated being, I get this this openness into all the possibilities within the whole universe of being. And this is what each one of us cultivates in relation to beings who have been embodied, or who have an archetypal body, or who lived and whose body is still with us, like Jesus or Buddha. I mean, it's an inner reality. There are innumerable Buddha worlds, you know, where you can, you know, feel this body. The Pure Land, Dewa Chen being just one of them. So, okay. Yeah.
It's been said that Joe Miller said, "What do you mean toward the one? We are the one." So.
Yeah, that's true, and it's also true. We have to go toward the one. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking, rather than focusing on toward the one, if we see ourselves more as the one.
We have to do both, Andali. Yeah. If we just, the people who walk around saying, we are the one, and are blind to their own limitations and the degree to which, you know, the way they are experienced and what they are manifesting is far from being enlightened, you know, are just as much to blame as the people that think you only go toward the one you never are the one. You know, I mean, the point is the path requires us to move from where we find ourselves. We find ourselves in a place of separation. We find ourselves in a place where we lack awakening, we lack knowledge, we lack love, we lack forgiveness, we lack strength, we lack all these qualities, we lack equanimity, we lack a sense of eternity where we're not afraid of dying. We lack all these things, in varying degrees, right? So let's admit it and ask so the way lies within us, but it's not enough to say, I am, there is no cage, and every time we try to fly, we run into the cage. That's why in Kwan, if you're on a spiritual path, if you're aspiring for something, if you're already illuminated, and you know it, and you've realized it, and you can function with it in the world, then, you don't need to imagine that you're moving toward the one. You can just be the one. But that's very rare. Most of us, Murshid said, I'm allowed to be positive because when I see I'm off track, I'm quite willing right then and there to drop it, put my head on the floor and surrender and start fresh. And so that gives me permission to be a positive force. He didn't say I'm always right. He didn't say I'm always at one with this. It always comes through clearly, So it's acknowledging our relative condition. Another thing he said was, people say Maya means illusion. That everything here is Maya. It's all illusion. He said, well, that's well and good, but then you have to start talking about the reality of illusions because they're real to us, and here we are stuck in them. And so unless you can, talk about them in a way that can allow you to overcome them, unless we can deal with our place of separation from oneness by finding our home in the one. And that's why I like to give the breathing practice like I did, of oscillating between the pole of claiming that oneness and being one with the only being, and moving into that place where there's always more. Like Prophet Muhammad said, Allah, there's always more of you to know. And not, I am the one, I am glorious, nothing exceeds me. And Rumi says, when asked about that, Bastami was drunk with one sip of the wine. And Prophet Muhammad could never be filled because he could see the boundlessness of God's majesty. So that, and that's the Ya Ahad is the one, and Ya Samad is that always flowing toward the one. So, in the Unity Surah of the Quran, when they questioned Prophet Muhammad about how this God, what sort of creature is this God this Allah, he got this surah which said, he is one, never born, never giving birth, that the source of all and everything flows to him. To it. And it goes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Kulhu Allahu Samad, Allahu Ahad. God is always eternally flowing towards perfections, more and more, eternally. The Samad, the circumference of that boundless circle that is endlessly extended, infinitely. The ocean without a boundary, without a shore. This is the Samad, is just continuous a being. And the Ahad is that unity out of which nothing is outside of. The one. And you can't have one without the other. You really can't have one without the other. Because in God's state of aloneness, in God's state of oneness, came to self-awareness and conceived a beloved, conceived the possibilities that were hidden in her own nature, in his own nature. in its own nature. In thatness's nature, it felt all these possibilities and fell in love with them. And so already now you have dualism in God. God becomes divided, because now God falls in love with himself and another herself in another way. So that's why when Papa Ram Dass was asked this very same question, what is your spiritual realization? And he was a bhakti yogi who had achieved union with God through love. And so that's this dualism, right? The beloved, and you become one with the beloved. But he described his state this way. He said, like the sacred river Ganges that has flowed from the sacred mountain into the ocean, I continue to flow into the ocean. So having become one, recognizing that there is nothing but the one, you continue to flow into the one. And Senzaki, in his interpretation of the Zen koan, he says the same thing, only in a different way. I won't go into it right now because I want to go on, but I do like the questions, and I'm animated by the questions, so that's probably good because but I want to get on to this meditation that I have in mind for us doing. Pure meditation aids one to reach into the inner recesses of the heart, while concentration is principally concerned with mind, whereas meditation, while not entirely unconcerned with mind, centers the soul where it belongs, in the heart. So if there's any form of concentration to be used in meditation, it consists in first getting into the rhythm of the heart. Even though it be done by watching the heartbeats, feeling them and harmonizing with them, then one centers all feeling in the physical heart, and out of feeling selects love, and out of love, divine love. That's very simple. And I'm giving a form of this as the practice that I want us to do over this next month. But moving on. Sufism is not a code of rules. The purpose of Sufism is to bring souls to God realization. Allah is beyond all attributes and qualities, being all essence. Understanding this, every breath can become a meditation wherein one puts full dependence upon Allah, and there will be no moment which will not be a meditation, no moment of separateness from God. If you understand this, after some time, if you get it, that God is beyond. So here's where we're going. How do you get to that place that is beyond all attributes and qualities and love it and make a loving connection with it so that it becomes a part of what you're reaching out to in your breath toward the one, because that is that plane which is undifferentiated oneness. So how do you do that? It's hard to fall in love with the formless absolute, with the impersonal God. But Murshid I'm moving towards somewhere where Murshid gives us a perfect way of doing it. And I think it's so beautiful and so simple and so at home that people can get it. And if we can get this from the beginning, that when we're trying to connect with the source, we want to connect not just with our teachers, not just with the illuminated souls, not just with the divine perfections and qualities, but with that essence which is beyond all that, in which all of that lives as the reality hidden within. and is the ahad and the samad, and so that's that one, and that toward the one that we want to get. But it is, how do you get it? It is not necessary to consciously strive to alter the breath rhythms, but the steady repetition of those spiritual exercises which have been given to one by the teacher helps more than anything else on the path to God. And one of the reasons is you didn't prescribe it yourself. You were willing to accept it as coming from God in some way, so that you didn't have the same kind of ambivalence about it, so that you were able to just take it in, you know. I mean, if God came here and offered me a practice and said, do this, say, I don't understand. He says, just, if you just do it, I'll help you in some way to become what you could be, or what you would want to be, what you can truly be. I mean, that's that sense, okay. God is the greatest of all placebos. If we can believe in God and then feel that God is present, then we can, you know, it's like if you imagine infinity, doesn't infinity exist? I think so. So even at that level, what we can let in, you know, we let it in because we received it from a teacher that we trusted. And so we take it in, and it works in a way that's very deep, and it has an effect. Yet there is always need to enter into the silence above sound and find the peace which is all-inclusive. There's always need to enter into the silence above sound and to find the peace which is all-inclusive. As a person enters the silence, so does the silence enter into him or her. As one unites with the universe, so does the universe manifest in them. This is true, no matter be what one's path or training. Ultimately, one arrives at this destination, but this is the silence of all life. In other words, all life is present in this silence, which without containing anything, this silence, may be said to contain all things. Therefore, one is said to enter the world egg or world womb. This accounts for the teaching of the mother of the world, the divine mother, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara or Kuan Yin. It represents the stage of realization of union with the silence. And as all may so unite, all are said to have a common mother. The silence of the womb and the silence of universal sound are each used to symbolize the other. It represents a stage of realization of union with the silence, and as all may so unite, all are said to have a common mother. Think about this. As you know, the silence, the world womb, the world mother, the world egg, this silence, this absolute state embraces everyone, is the mother of everything and everyone. You know, you feel a relation to it, a trust in its generosity of heart, its embrace, its holding, that you feel in the Divine Mother, in God's essence. But, you know, thinking of it in this way allows us to really cultivate more of a loving connection with it without having to get through our image of the Father that we have imposed on it. This silence is a mother. It's a womb. It's an egg. We all came out of it. We want to do a meditation with that in mind and connecting our hearts with it as we breathe. I'm just going to read the rest of this. This means that the true life is in God, the only being, and through God realization each one finds their true self. Initiation is the beginning and perfection is the end, the making complete. But where is the beginning and where is the end? They are both in silence, in God. In the silence we were born, and to it we return. Therefore, the perfection of meditation is meditation. It is the perfected souls who continue ever in meditation, being absorbed in meditation, creating from their meditation, and living in that meditation. The spiritual life is the drawing of sustenance through the breath from God. The spiritual life is the drawing of sustenance through the breath from God. It is a life of praise, yet of sobriety and balance. It is a life of fullness and emptiness both, being empty of self and filled with God. This is the true purpose of initiation and spiritual training from the moment the Murid takes bayat until the eternity of eternity's time without ending. So let's go into our breath again. Start with where it is. Make it a definite rhythm. Begin to refine it, lengthen it. Allow it to do that slowly. Don't put a lot of mental pressure on it. Just coax that, which is where it wants to go when you become really attentive to it. Feel it calling out toward the one. But understand now, you're calling out also to this. Let's understand what we're calling to, this one, this silence, this world womb, this world egg, this mother of the world, all worlds. The embrace of it, where we came from, out of this egg, where we return to this world womb. Find this as your breath travels, long refined breath, and touch this place really consciously at the place where the breath turns over. Allow yourself, where it's neither up nor down, neither down nor up, to just dwell for a moment in that place and to feel this return and birth from the silence, connecting your heart with it with love. Continue to encourage the breath, refined, at ease, long, all the way in, all the way out, pausing naturally at both turns, resting in the womb of the mother, the silence. Filled with all life, you move from that silence into manifestation, only to return to it at the end. Now shift your perspective and become the Holy Mother, become Kuan Yin in whatever name you call her, whose being is this infinite silence, who manifests with compassion for all sentient beings, embracing them. And as you breathe in and out, you're in the reality of this embrace of love from the essence of the vast silence, and you see it rising and falling in beings. In other words, you see beings rising through it and from it and to it. A heart capacity that's unbounded and yet can hold each one fully, without agitation, in the embrace of this great peace. This love has no beginning and no end. let's step back and make a big space and give an opportunity for a few of us at a time to walk in the effacement in Kwan Zeon, Kwan Nan, Kwan Yin, Mary, the Holy Mother, the one who embraces every being. Everything returns to her source. But when Murshid gives this walk, it's just, your heart is open, nothing is held away from it, and yet because your being is this tranquility, this silence, this great peace, whatever is drawn into your heart meets this peace, and you're undisturbed, because this peace is forever, before creation, after creation, in creation, unchanged, absolute. Your nature is rooted in that, and the compassion that comes from you is because of the relative suffering of all beings. You reach out to it and you offer this refuge in your heart. You're resting in the peace, a long peaceful breath, feeling the great capacity of heart that is unlimited. May I have a few people join me with this walking, embodying this, accepting her embrace, becoming her being. Anywhere you find agitation in yourself, let go of it into that void, into that great heart that holds you and now you hold beings with. Grimmest face of the world, the most awful suffering, meets peace here. I want to return to these lessons in mysticism that I included in the text for us to study. And simply because there's one thing I want to I want to call your attention to this all, but I'm not going to read it all. I'm inviting you to study it. But when we come to the and to look for it, you know, in our own breath, you know, in situations and qualities that are, you know, to notice the Jalal, to notice the Jemal, and to notice the Kemal. Now, I want to, because I have a lot of things I have in mind to do, I want to just kind of read a little bit about Jemal and then Kemal. Jemal is the balancing force of nature, which balances the power of Jalal. For instance, the sun is the Jalal force and would burn the whole universe if it were not the moon to balance its heat. He's speaking in the absolute terms of sunness and moonness, not in just our solar system. The sun at the dawn of creation, you know, that the amazing burst of Jalal that came out of the Dhal, Jalal, that tremendous burst of sun. But without the Jemal, everything just burns. Jemal is the balancing force. In Vedantic language, these two powers are termed Shiva and Shakti, the essence and nature. This can be seen in love and beauty, the former, love, being Jalal, while the latter is Jemal. If it were not for the beauty, the love would have destroyed the whole being. There's a verse of Sharif. It is my eyes in wrath that have created the lightning, stars, sun, and moon. What upheaval there would be if a spark escaped from the fire of my heart. Jemal is the life force that in the breath flows through the left nostril, and during Jemal, all affairs of a gentle nature are well accomplished. As during the time of Jalal, works of a gross nature are well accomplished. Things that require more energy, more force, more thrust. So the suggestion here is to notice when your breath is in a certain condition, there are certain things that are going to be much more harmonious and easily successful for you to do. So if your breath is in a Jamali condition, then you want to feel the things that are appropriate and where success will come. And similarly, Jalali, as he says, during Jemal, all the affairs of a gentle nature are well accomplished. As during the time of Jalal, works of a gross nature. People who have the Jemal temperament show grace and beauty in their thought, speech, and action, and control and balance as well. The reason is that the life force is not in its great intensity in them. The people of Jalal temperament show the contrary. A person of Jemal temperament is easy to get on with, and a person of Jalal temperament is difficult. And yet it depends upon the evolution of the person, because it can, if a person is evolved, they're always going to be harmonious in some sense. The Sufi, understanding the nature of Jalal and Jemal, acts harmoniously in all situations of life. And we do this sometimes with Murshid's astrological yoga practices with sun and moon, and balancing sun and moon. You know, if you can bring, so the sun breath is in through the right and the moon breath is out through the left. So if you inhale right and you exhale left, you come into a kind of balance in your breath of sun and moon. Now, the, the meeting of opposites can be destructive and can be Kemal in the sense of everything is destroyed. When we get to Kemal, that's what I really wanted to get into, so to understand, because so much of our practice has to do with bringing the opposites together. The human being, by nature, in our fullness of being human, we're here balancing heaven and earth, perfection and limitation. The heart can see both at the same time. That's the amazing thing about the heart. The heart can see the perfection of one's own self in its true nature and the limitations of one's own self at the same time. And similarly in others, in the world, and so that's the amazing thing about the heart. It has this ability to hold apparent contradictions because there is something that transcends and includes the apparent contradiction. And this is, and breath and meditative facility allows us to bridge this. When we come to the sun and moon that we carry as an equal balance into the day, this allows the Sufi to be harmonious in all situations. Because, you know, if the situation is asking for Jalal, you accentuate the sun, and if it's asking for Jemal, you accentuate the moon in your breath. But in the course of the day, your breath is naturally going to be in one of these states or the other. And that is what he's also inviting you to notice. So on the one hand, there's mastery. On the other hand, there's wisdom in going with the flow that is, and not swimming against the current so much in life. And so that's why he's asking you to look into the state of the breath. And yet it depends on the evolution of the person. The Sufi, understanding the nature of Jalal and Jemal, acts harmoniously in all situations of life. Relating to Kemal. Yeah?
Another question. Sometimes said that the energy is not Jemal or Kemal, but it's very weak energy. Even if it's Kemal or Jemal or Jalal, it's still weak.
That's right. And therefore fairly non-effective. Yeah, so that's the other thing that you have to check in with your breath, your state. I mean, it's not enough to know whether it's emphasizing inhalation or exhalation, if it's more in the left or the right. You have to feel its life force, its potency, the pitch of your heart, the magnetism in the breath. You know, these are all keys to the situation. Yeah.
Is this a key to delusion, or that sleepy, lazy kind of dull feeling? Is that a key to Kemal?
That state where
Where it's weak, or what? I'm trying to make a thread of what Shakur was saying.
Well, he was commenting back over all of the practices. It's not enough simply to identify. You're making a good comment. It's not enough simply to identify the state. You also have to identify the potency of it, the life force of it. To know exactly. Okay, my breath is in a very in a Jemal condition, but not very much, and I'm easily going to get riled up out of it as soon as I start to interact. So this sort of thing. You learn by error. You learn by try. But you learn by trying, by taking the initiative, by continuous inquiry and self-discovery, and that's why I want to really emphasize our working on these things together and not taking too much at first bite to begin to work with. But I want to get to this teaching on Kemal. And then I have another practice I'd like for us to do. But let's go to this first. Kemal is the culmination of Jalal and Jemal. Kemal comes when Jalal and Jemal meet. And in the meeting of Jalal and Jemal, there is naturally a conflict. The Kemal breath is that which flows through both nostrils. Everything and every object in this world is either Jalal or Jemal. No one except God can be attributed with Kemal. All destructions are caused by Kemal, such as earthquakes, storms, floods, wars, death, and Qayamat, the end of the world. The Jalal or Jemal temperament can be found in everybody, but the Kemal temperament is found only among the holy beings who are living dead, who live in God, not themselves. Every action, when it reaches Kemal, ceases to exist. And every person in every plane of being, after reaching Kemal, has a fallback. Therefore, those who study the nature of life and who value the unchanging nature of life, those who study the nature of life and value the unchanging nature of life, in other words, the essence, drink the bowl of Kemal, however bitter it may appear for the time. This is the bowl of poison that Mahadeva drank. This is the cross on which Christ was crucified. You know, that's why Mahadeva or Shiva has the blue spot on his throat, because at the beginning of, you know, the Hindus have a great teaching because they understand thatness. And so, you know, we can maybe even see now the light of the Big Bang and measure the date of this whole eruption and manifestation at about 8 billion years or so, I think. But what was before the Big Bang? That a period when there was apparently nothing. But that apparent nothingness was God, was thatness, was suchness, and before that, another universe. And in fact, endless numbers of manifestation and returning to the great womb, the great egg, the silence. That's their view, and it seems much more attractive to me than the idea that things had a beginning in time. It's hard to imagine things not having a beginning in time, but it's even harder to imagine things having a beginning in time. And
Who was that? Where's time?
yeah, because you know, our thinking it runs on concepts, but underneath it is something deeper. And the point I want to make is this is very true, and yet that's one of the big reasons we work with the breath, is so that we can begin to attain a kind of friendliness with the Kemali condition. And that's what we're doing too when we touch it at the top and at the bottom of the breath, you know, because it's this Kemali condition, and the yogis discovered this thousands and thousands of years ago. It's in some of the early Shiva sutras that in the natural passage of the breath, it passes through a Kemal point at the top and at the bottom. And the point is inherently unstable, and yet some of these great beings, Sufi yogi beings, have been able to suspend the breath for long periods of time, for whole nights at a time, a night at a time, you know, doing some of these advanced practices and just dwelling in that state. But this is, like you said, some beings they die before death. They are, you know, as Murshid said, that's a funny question to ask someone who's already gone through this experience of knowing, dying and knowing that they're eternal, you know. So, but we want to make friends with it. We want to make friends with this place, and you know, especially when something, it's in our face, you know, some tragedy, something happens, we are, we says things die. That's what things, And you can look at, you look at people's hand lines, you look at their charts, there are all these indications. There are times that are more susceptible. These are Kemal points that come up. It's a play. And when a Kemal time comes up for us, the action that is appropriate, anything you try to do outwardly tends to break. And so you turn your attention within and you break the concept of yourself. You go into a meditation in which you go into the depth of oneness or thatness, beyond. It's a great time to meditate, in other words. When your breath is balanced in both nostrils, you know, I mean, this is a tremendous time to meditate. And it's not a bad way to breathe, only you can't do it. You try, if you really were, if you had something, a device measuring, which is quite possible to have, you would notice that it's extremely rare for the breath to be totally balanced between both nostrils. After some practices, which I won't go into right now, but we will go into at some point along our way. It is very natural to get into this. But all I'm trying to say is part of the approach of breaking through has to do with bringing the opposites together. Having a place of heart that can hold both simultaneously. God's your inherent perfection and your experience of isolation and separation and limitation and deficiency. Simultaneously, the heart can hold that. That's amazing. And the great capacity of holding in a tranquil way. I mean, how is Kuan Yin holding the suffering of beings? How's Mary holding the suffering beings? In a place that knows oneness and yet appreciates and has empathy with suffering and offers a solace and not imagining there's nothing to do because there is this suffering to address and to be a refuge for. Without sentient beings, no Buddha. Buddha exists for sentient beings. God finds written on God's heart in the vastness of the infinite void the name of love, according to the Quran. I found written on my heart in the voidness of my state, love. An inherent bubble that's going to come up. So Mahadeva, at the beginning of one of these cycles, they even got the Devas and the Asuras together. They made it. They were always fighting with each other. These different forces in the inner world. The Devas, the more angelic. The Asuras, the more demonic course. They always struggling but the one thing they could agree on at one of these cosmic rebirthings of the universe was they wanted the soma. They wanted the nectar of immortality. It was in the great lake of being. And so they got the dragon, some gigantic cosmic archetype, and they began to churn with the Devas and the Asuras all cooperating together to bring up this nectar of immortality from the waters of pre-existence, so for the benefit of beings to have, so that we could know immortality. But poison comes up instead. That's the first thing that comes up, is all the poison. And so Vishnu, who's another face of God, along with Shiva and Brahma, says to Shiva, Mahadeva, would you please? And he says, certainly. So he goes and he drinks it all, drinks the poison down. And because he is totally identified with that which is eternal and immoral, the only effect it has on him is it leaves this blue mark on his neck, which is one of the adornments you see of Shiva. And then the soma can come up. See, not until you can drink the poison as nectar can the nectar arise. And this is again at the cosmic level, and also at a deep psychological level for each one of us, that we have to find a place where we the bitterness that comes, we're willing to accept it and to go deep into the root of it and to find what is underneath it all. To be fearless, because if one has already died to the false self, what has one got to fear? And this is, so I mean, you can't really separate out one thread like breath and take it through everything, because that's too linear. It's too narrow, because as it develops, you see the interconnectivity with all these other factors that we're bringing in from the very beginning of it. And this is, but breath for us here will be our lens that we come back to as a way of getting a view and adjusting our view and moving forward, using all of these other methods along with it. And that's the way in which I want to present this, because I'd like to use this as a vehicle for our awakening on the Sufi path, and it is a tremendous vehicle. But if we just grasp it as a kind of a thing where we're just working with breath, and the other stuff is out of our focus, it's not going to be that helpful. And then if we integrate with the beginning with understanding, okay, breath is a lift that can take you to any floor. It's a current that can connect anything from the inner and the outer. But how do we do that? How do we make it that way? By refining it, by making it, by connecting, attuning, raising the pitch of the heart, attuning with our ideal, attuning with what we find beautiful, the perfection that we find beautiful. That's what we use to raise our the awareness factor in the breath that we're working with. But so I wanted to just say a little bit, because so that people aren't just kind of floored by these teachings on the Kemal state. Though when you are hit with one, you frequently are floored, and it pulls out all of your underpinnings, and if you're graced, you can go through that and have a tremendous growth as a result of it. But it's something to know, and it comes up not simply as a big pattern where you die, but as in little patterns where you notice it in your life, and you see everything I'm trying to do now, no matter whether I'm doing it this way or that way, it's just, I'd be better off not to do anything at this moment. That's the thing, that's the letter that you don't answer now, I mean, if you answer it, you're just going to screw things up, you just are, there's nothing, it doesn't matter how you answer it, you just can't answer it at this moment in this state, For example, you identify it, and by just gaining this kind of discernment, you are able to navigate a lot better. So you turn your attention at those times towards things that are more inward and more meditative and contemplative, and you can do a lot of inner work at that time, Kemal time. But we want to have a balanced breath. We want to be, but we need that sense of the balancing quality of the Jemal. But some of us need a balancing quality of Jalal, because we're very, very tendency is toward a Jamali personality that is really afraid of power and has a reaction to power and won't therefore own one's own power and connection with the divine power. Let's do the Dhal, Jalali, Wali, Ikram dance. Can you take us into that?
Yeah, I think so.
Dhal, Jalali, Wali, Ikram. The Dhal is the Zat, the that, the silence, the void, the absolute condition of God. So it's the only name that mentions that. And what comes out of this is the great balance of power and beauty, generosity of heart, the Ikram and the Jalal. And this is a dance, one of those my Buddhas come up with, and Tuwa was going to lead us in.
We'll do that when we have the steps. We'll do that for a while, and then there's a second part. Dhal, Jalali, Wali, Ikram. 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 And that's everything walking in the line of the direction, except.
If I may, just let's move this. We have a lot more room. We don't have to be cramped on top of each other. Let's take up this whole space. We can come in the middle, but extend this way. Yeah.
So the steps are, maybe it's easier if I just. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. So it's just in at a little angle and then back out, so you're making little high wedges. Yeah. All right. So are we ready to start, or just let's see how it starts, and if it doesn't start well, we'll start again.
Jalali Wali Ikram. Amen. Okay. Yado Jalali Wali Ikram.